Hello, and welcome to Narrated Archives, the place where we unearth enduring and classic short stories from the public domain. My name is Sally Barron, and I'm your guide and narrator on this literary journey. In this episode, we have a couple of selections from Zona Gale, a fellow Wisconsin native. Zona Gale was born in 1874, was an American novelist, playwright, and short story writer known for her portrayals of Midwestern small-town life. Born in Portage, Wisconsin, she based her popular early short stories in the fictional setting of Friendship Village. Gale began her career as a newspaper reporter before shifting to fiction and publishing her first novel in 1906. Her work evolved from sentimental stories to a more complex realism, which she used to explore social issues like women's rights. The shift culminated in her novel Miss Lulu Beth, which won the Pulitzer Prize for drama when she adapted it for the stage in 1921. This made her the first woman to receive the award. An active suffragist and pacifist, Gale also used her platform to advocate for various progressive causes, including the Wisconsin Equal Rights Law. After the deaths of her parents, her later writing adopted mystical themes, which received a more mixed critical reception. Gale remained a prolific writer throughout her life until her death in 1938. First, we're stepping into Friendship Village with a description of town modernization circa 1908. Next is a delightful memory from her childhood about her and two of her friends attempting to be grown up. Friendship Village. We are one long street, rambling from sun to sun, inheriting traits of the parent country road, which we unite. And we are cross streets, members of the same family, properly imitative, proving our ancestorship in a primeval genius for trees, or bursting out in inexplicable weaknesses of courthouse, engine house, town hall, and telephone office. Ultimately, our stock dwindled out in a slaughterhouse and a few detached houses of milkmen. The cemetery is delicately put behind them under a hill. There is nothing medieval in all of this, one would say, but then see how we wear our rue. When one of us telephones, she will scrupulously ask for the number, for it says so at the top of every page. Give me 11, she will put it, with an impersonality as if she were calling for 4 figures. And Central will answer, "Well, I just saw Miss Holcomb go across the street. I'll call you if you want when she comes back." Or, "I don't think you better ring the Hellmans just now. They were awake most of the night with one of Miss Hellman's attacks." Or, "Dr. June's invited to Miss Sykes for tea. Shall I give him to you there?" The telephone is modern enough, but in our use of it, is there not a flavor, as of an elder time, to be caught by them of many years from now? And already we may catch this flavor as our Britain great-great-lady grandmothers and more may have been conscious of the old fashion of sitting in bowers. If only they were conscious like that. To be sure of it would be to touch their hands in the margin of the ballad books. Or we telephone to the livery barn and boarding stable for the Little Blacks, celebrated for their self-control in encounters with the Proudfit's motor car. The stable boy answers that the Little Blacks are at the funeral, and after he has gone off to ask his employer, who in his unofficial moments is our neighbor, our church choir bass, our landlord even, comes and tells us that, after all, we may have the Little Blacks, and he himself brings them round at once, the same Little Blacks that we meant all along. And when, quite naturally, we wonder at the boy's version, we learn, "Oh, why, the Blacks was standin' just across the street, waitin' at the church door hitched to the hearse. I took 'em out and put 'em in the bays. I says to myself, the corpse won't care." Some way the Proudfit's car and the stable telephone must themselves have slipped from modernity to old-fashioned before that incident shall come quite into its own. So it is with certain of our domestic ways. For example, Ms. Postmaster Sykes. In Friendship Village, every woman assumes for her given name the employment of her husband, has some fine modern china and much solid silver in extremely good taste, so much, indeed, that she is wont to confess to having cleaned 40 or 60 or 75 pieces. 75 pieces of solid silver have I cleaned this morning. You can say what you want to. Nice things are a real care. Yet surely this is the proper conjunction. Miss Sykes is currently reported to rise in the night preceding the day of her house cleaning, and to take her carpets out in the back, and there softly sweep and sweep them, so that, at their official cleaning the next day, the neighbors may witness how little dirt is whipped out on the line. Ought she not to have old-fashioned silver and eggshell china and drop-leaf mahogany to fit the practice, instead of dazzling and wild rose patterns in solid and art curtains and mission chairs and a white enameled refrigerator and a gas range? We have the latest funeral equipment, black broadcloth covered supports, a coffin carriage for up and down the aisles, natural palms to order, and the pulleys to let them down slow. And yet our individual funeral capacity has been such that we can tell what every woman who has died in friendship for years has done without. Ms. Grocer Stew, her of all folks, has done without new-style flat-irons. Ms. Worth had used the bread pan to wash dishes in. Ms. Jeweler Sprague, the first Ms. Sprague, had only 6 bread and butter knives, her that could get wholesale too. And we have little maidservants who answer our bells in caps and trays, so to say, but this savior of jestership is authentic, for any one of them is likely to do as of late did Miss Holcomb, that was Mame Bliss's maid, answer at dinner with guests, that there were no more mashed potatoes, or else there won't be any left to warm up for your breakfast. And though we have our daily newspaper receiving Associated Press service, yet, as Miss Amity Toplady observed, it is only very lately that they have mentioned in the daily the birth of a child or anything that has any tang to it. We put new wine in old bottles, but we also use new bottles to hold our old wine. For consider the name of our Main Street. Is this Main or Clark or Cook or Grand Street, according to the register of the main streets of town? Instead, for its half-mile of village life, the plank road, macadamized and arc-lighted, is called Daphne Street. Daphne Street! I love to wonder why. Did our dear Dr. June's father name it when he set the 500 elms and oaks which glorify us? Or did Daphne herself take this way on the day of her flight, so that when they came to draft the town, they recognized that it was Daphne Street, and so were spared the trouble of naming it? Or did the future anonymously toss us back the suggestion, thinking of some day of her own when she might remember us and say, Daphne Street? Already some of us smile with a secret nod at something when we direct a stranger. You'll find the telegraph and cable office 2 blocks down on Daphne Street. The commercial traveler's house, the Abigail Arnold home bakery, the post office and armory are in the same block on Daphne Street. Or, the electric light office is at the corner of Dunn and Daphne. It is not a wonder that Daphne herself, at seeing these things, did not stay, but lifted her laurels somewhat nearer Tempe, although there are those of us who like to fancy that she is here all the time in our Daphne Street magic. The fire bell, the tulip beds, and the twilight bonfires. For how else, in all reason, has the name persisted. Of late, a new doctor has appeared, one may say, has abounded, a surgeon who, such is his zeal, will almost perform an operation over the telephone, and, we have come somewhat cynically to believe, would prefer doing so to not operating at all. Thus, the new shoulders the old, and our transition is still swift enough to be a spectacle, as was its earlier phase which gave our Middle West to cabins and plow horses, with a tendency away from wigwams and bobwhites, and in this local warfare between old and new, a chief figure is Calliope Marsh. She is a little rosy, wrinkled creature, officially, though no other than officially, pertaining to 60 years, mender of lace, seller of extracts, and music teacher, but of the three she thinks of the last as her true vocation. With us, all the friendship idea prevails. We accept what progress sends, but we regard it with our own fashion. Our improvements, like our entertainments, our funerals, our holidays, and our very loves, are but Friendship Village exponents of the modern spirit. Perhaps, in a tender significance that she meant, Calliope characterized us when she said, "This town is more like a back door than a front, or, givin' it full credit, anyhow, it's no more'n a side door with no vines." The Walk. "What's the latest you ever stayed up?" Delia demanded of Mary Elizabeth and me. "I sat up until 10 o'clock once when my aunt was coming," I boasted. "Once I was on a train that got in at 12 o'clock, said Mary Elizabeth thoughtfully. "But I was asleep until the train got in. Would you call that sitting up until 12 o'clock? On the whole, Delia and I decided that you could not impartially call it so, and Mary Elizabeth conceded the point. Her next best experience was dated only 9:30. "I was up until 11 o'clock, lots of times," Delia threw out carelessly. We regarded her with awe. Here was another glory for her list. Already we knew that she had slept in a sleeping car, patted an elephant, and swum 4 strokes. "What's the earliest you ever got up?" Delia pursued. Here, too, we proved to have nothing to compete with the order of Delia's risings. However, this might yet be mended. There seemed never to be the same household ban on getting up early that there was on staying up late. "Let's get up some morning before 4 o'clock and take a walk," I suggested. "My brother got up at 3:30 once," Mary Elizabeth announced. "Well," I said, "let's get up at 3:30. Let's do it tomorrow morning." Mary Elizabeth and I had stretched a string from a little bell at the head of her bed to a little bell at the head of my bed. This the authorities permitted us to ring so long as there was discernible light or any other fixed signal at the 2 windows, and also after 7 o'clock in the morning. But of course the time when both longed most frantically to pull the cord was when either woke at night and lay alone in the darkness. In the night, I used to put my hand on the string and think how, by a touch, I could waken Mary Elizabeth just as if she were in my room, just as if we were hand in hand. I used to think what joy it would be if all the little children on the same side of the ocean were similarly provided, and, if no one interfered, a little code of signals arose in my mind, a kind of secret code which should be heard by nobody, save those for whom they were intended, for sick children, for frightened children, for children just having a bad dream, for motherless children, for cold or tired or lonely children, for all children sleepless for any cause. I used to wish that little signals like this could be rung for all unhappy children, night or day. Why, with all their inventions, had not grown people invented this? Of course, they would never make things any harder for us than they could help, we thought. But why had they not done this to make things easier? The 3:30 proposal was unanimously vetoed within doors. We might rise at 5 o'clock, no earlier. This somewhat took edge from the adventure, but we accepted it as next best. Delia was to be awakened by an alarm clock. Mary Elizabeth and I felt that by some mysterious means we could awaken ourselves. And we too agreed to call each other, so to say, by the bells. When I did awaken, it was still quite dark, and when I had found light and a clock, I saw that it was only a little after 3. As I had gone to bed at 7, I was wide awake at 3, and it occurred to me that I should stay up till time to call Mary Elizabeth. This would be 4:30. Besides, stopping up then presented an undoubtable advantage. It enabled me to skip my bath. Clearly I could not, with courtesy, risk rousing the household with many waters. I dressed in the dark, braided my own hair in the dark. By now I could do this, save that the plait, when I brought it over my shoulder, still would assume a jog, and sat down by the open window. It was one of the large nights, for some nights are undeniably larger than others. When I was on the street with my hand in a grown-up hand, the night was invariably bounded by trees, fences, houses, lawns, horse blocks, and the like. But when I stepped to the door alone at night, I always noticed that it stretched endlessly away. So it was now. I could slip out the screen, as I had discovered earlier in the season, when I had felt the need of feeding a nest of house wrens in the birdhouse below my sill, and I took out the screen now and leaned out in the darkness. The stars seemed very near. I'm always glad that I did not know how far away they are, for they looked so friendly near. If only, I used to think, the clouds would form behind the stars and leave them all shiny and blurry bright in the rain. What were they? How came they to be in our world's sky? I suppose that I had been 10 minutes at the window that morning when I saw a light briefly flash in Mary Elizabeth's window. Instantly, I softly pulled my bell. She answered, and then I could see her, dim in the window once more dark. "It isn't time yet," she called softly. Our houses were very near. "Not yet," I answered, "but I'm going to stay up." Mary Elizabeth briefly considered this. "What for?" she propounded. I had not thought what for. To be up early," I answered confidently. "I'm all dressed." The defense must have carried conviction. "I will too," Mary Elizabeth concluded. She disappeared, and, after a suitable time, reappeared at the window, presumably fully clothed. I detached the bell from my bed and sat with it in my hand, and I found afterward that she had done the same. From time to time, we each gave the cord a slight, ecstatic pull. The whole mystery of the great night lay in those gentle signals. It is unfortunate to have to confess that, after a time, the mystery paled. But it did. Stars, wide, dark, moonless lawns, empty street, all these blurred and merged in a single impression. This was one of chilliness. Even calling through the night at intervals, and at the imminent risk of being heard, lost its charm, because, after a little while, there was nothing left to call. "How still is it?" and "Nobody but us is up in town," and "Won't Delia be mad?" lose their edge when repeated for about the 3rd time each. Moreover, I was obliged to face a new foe. I was getting sleepy. With undue disturbance of the cord, I managed to consult the clock once more. It was 5 minutes of 4. There remained more than an hour to wait. It was I who capitulated. "Mary Elizabeth," I said waveringly, "would you care very much if I was to lay down just a little to rest my eyes?" "No, I wouldn't care," came with significant altricity. "I will too." I lay down on the covers and pulled a comforter about me. As I drifted off, I remembered wondering how the dark ever kept awake all night, for it was awake. To know that, one only had to listen. We all had a signal which we called a trill, made by tongue and teeth, with almost the force of a boy and a blade of grass. This, produced furiously beneath my window, was what wakened me. Delia stood between the two houses, engaged with such absorption in manufacturing this sound that she failed to see me at the window. A moment later, after I had hailed her, Mary Elizabeth appeared at her window, looking distinctly distraught. Seeing us fully dressed, Delia's indignation increased. "Why didn't you leave me to know you were up?" she demanded shrilly. "It's 5:15. I've been out here 15 minutes. We were assuring her guiltily that we would be right down, when there came an interruption. Delia's father, in a gray bathrobe, stood at an upper window of their house across the street. "What do you mean by waking up the whole neighborhood?" he inquired, not without reason. "Now I want you to come home." "We were going walking," Delia reminded him. "You are coming home at once after this proceeding," Delia's father assured her. "No more words, please, Delia." He disappeared from the window. Delia moved reluctantly across the street. As she went, she threw a resentful glance at Mary Elizabeth and me, each. "I'm sorry, Delia," we called softly in chorus. She made no reply. Mary Elizabeth and I were left staring at each other down our bell rope, no longer taut but limp, as we had left it earlier. Even in that stress, the unearthly sweetness of the morning smote me. The early sun, the early shadows, it all looked so exactly as if it had expected you not to be looking. This is the look of outdoors that, now, will most quickly take me back. "It wouldn't be fair to go walking without Delia," said Mary Elizabeth abruptly and positively. "No," I agreed with equal decision. "Then, we might as well go back to bed." I pursued the subject further. "Let's," said Mary Elizabeth. I really enjoyed those light-hearted windows into everyday, ordinary life of the past. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss a single story. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a quick review is the #1 way to help this podcast grow. I read every single one. The public domain is a massive library, and I need your help to find the next great tale. What should we read next? Send in your request to sbnarration@sallybaronvoiceovers.com. I'm always on the lookout for your favorites. The story may have ended, but the archive is always open. We'll see you in the next chapter of the Narrated Archives. Thank you for listening.